before we begin, also, To Be Serious is another person like Conference Report I respect, and yet they've had this kind of reaction, which I think is psychological. To Be Serious, you got to look at this. You said that it seems like I'm not allowing for differentiation between humans and other kinds of consciousness, and yet I've talked the entire time about the differentiation. The differences. It's you guys that are rejecting any kind of similarity. To a ludicrous, I'm offended in some cases. Not me, but these people are telling me they're offended at what I do by implying there could be any relation, that these components of our lives could possibly be shared with the creatures that are generated by the very same DNA we're generated by. Like I said, it's just part of, we're in the middle of something. Human race has to be special. It's not special enough, I guess, just as it is. Anyway, okay, so now, Gary, thank you for providing this video. I'm sorry that being my foil leads to so much emotional distress for you, but I guess that's your problem.
Response video to Piero again. So he's talking more of this stuff on consciousness, and he's not, I talked to him last night in Stickam. He posted this video, and apparently he's going to say more of the same crap, that consciousness is information or some other nonsense based on
that consciousness is related to information. That for something to be information, it's related to something using it as information, and that somewhere in that system of using information as information is a definition of consciousness, yes.
The comments, anyway. So anyway, I played the first 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Hasn't really said anything yet, but I'll say something as a context here. There's biological truth behind all of this stuff, and you have to sort of give explanations that are consistent with evolutionary theory, how and why we got consciousness, how...
Oh, but see, that's exactly what I'm doing. How we got consciousness and the investigation into that and the realization that we share DNA with all these other creatures and evolution, that implies that, of course, we are not going to be the only place that this sensation of consciousness is going to exist. There's nothing that unique about our situation that we would be the only ones. And many people, you get mad later in the video when I bring up the animal thing, but many people have denied the consciousness of animals, of anything, of pain, of anything else, of even other people. Okay, so those arguments are they're just knee-jerk arguments. The fact is that it should be the assumption that we're going to have any experience that comes from our biology can be reproduced by the same kinds of biology elsewhere. So I noticed that plants don't have nerves, so I don't think they have neurological sensations like vision. Okay, I noticed that. But I noticed they do have chemical releases that are like adrenaline and plant hormones and this kind of thing, and so that is in common with us.
Developed, you have to have some sort of theory based in here. Plants can't do anything with feelings, okay? Any kind of pain or anything. They can't move in any real way.
Okay, and see these qualifiers. This is always funny. It's like, and also some of the other people throwing back, like I'll just say, well, they have some sort of feeling that they're conscious of, and then they'll argue against that and then say, well, they can't have human pain. It's like, well, no, I said some kind. So he says they can't really move, because since they do move, and they actually move in reaction to the things that they sense, he has to go, well, that's not real. That's not a real Scotsman.
Sort of theory based in here. Plants can't do anything with feelings, okay? Any kind of pain or anything. They can't move in any real way. Alright, moving over a 2-hour period isn't going to do them any frickin' good in 99% of cases.
What are you talking about? Why do you think they evolved to do that slow motion? Because it helps them in 99% of the cases, because they only need to move slow. Oh, I see. The argument now is that slow creatures are fundamentally like machines. The speed, well, okay, I guess a fly then is more advanced than you.
So it's just it would be nonsense. It wouldn't have any evolutionary use, and it certainly doesn't have any...
Okay, so flowers and some flowers and leaves track the sun, and you're saying that would have no evolutionary use for them, so it would never happen. This thing that we know happens, that you can see yourself happen. We know that can't happen because there's no reason for it would, but it did happen. Now you need to find the reason. The reason's obvious because they collect solar energy, or you have to dissipate it in some cases depending on their environment. So that's all kind of explained. They do have a reason. How fast they move, like growing towards the light, or the heliotropic tracking the sun, that's fast enough, obviously, for their purposes. Works.
Uses of, you have to have some sort of central processor to be able to do processing, real processing.
No, not processing. And of course, you caught yourself and said real processing. You know, programmed by real Scotsmen.
So I would make an analogy. There's tons of chemistry that's really complex. You mix two chemicals together, and every 2 hours it goes through a whole stage of chemistry, and you can end up with an epoxy solid after 6 hours, and you start with two liquids.
Interlude.
Nylon. I remember as your father was a chemist, and I remember going to Allied Chemical, and they put on a demonstration. And I remember nylon. It was really fascinating. You know, they just mixed a couple of chemicals, they turned colors, this, that, and other thing happened. You pour in one more chemical, you wait 5 minutes, and all of a sudden they pulled out a string of nylon out of this muck. Yeah, it's just chemistry. It's not conscious. It's not trying to make anything.
So it's just chemistry. It's not trying to make anything. The people that are putting the chemicals together and moving the strings around and pulling strings out and showing it to little kids. It's just chemistry. It's not people making it happen. This is happening on its own. Well, yeah. So that's what you believe in all cases, right, Gary? That everything is just happening. That there is no intentionality, right? So why the difference? That's what's happening in the human, you say. So, but it's really special non-freedom in the human, and in the plant, not so special non-freedom. Fundamentally so bad I hate you forever. You're my enemy now because you said that humans were more special than plants in a respect that I don't think anything is special in. That just drives me crazy when you do that, Piero. You are blocked.
Take some dirty, scummy water in your kitchen sink and drop some dish soap in it and watch what happens.
Dude, it's a nice pattern. It doesn't look alive to me. I don't go, hey, that must be alive. It doesn't look alive. It looks like a chain reaction. I can tell the difference between that and a sustained living thing. You have to get a lot more esoteric before it starts to be a hard call. Come on. We know nobody thinks the dish soap's alive, Gary.
Watch it happen. Okay? It looks like it's alive. It looks like something's happening. I mean, all the suds is moving.
Everybody can tell the difference.
Everything happens. And it's just chemistry. There's no frickin' goddamn consciousness there. It's reactive chemistry. And that's all a plant has, is reactive.
And that's all you say humans have. Right? That you don't believe in freedom of the will of any sort. You're a determinist. So humans, that's all humans have. So we pull off consciousness with the same limitation. So that's not an argument that they can't pull off consciousness.
Chemistry. It's not conscious. There's just no point in having the word conscious if you're going to expand it and move it in those directions.
Bullshit. The dog is conscious, and you accept that, of the toy. The cat is conscious of your hand. You accept that. So just tell me, where do you stop accepting it? From the bug? Right at the plants? Well, whatever. You're just choosing an arbitrary threshold where you're part of the tree of life gets a special thing where you're actually indignant of the idea that when I see a flower track the sun, that I think that it knows the sun is there. That's appropriate use of the word know. That it's conscious of the sun. It's not self-conscious. It's not conscious that it's a flower tracking the sun. But it's conscious sun. Where's the sun? Oh, over here, sun. That.
and there's no evolution, there's no biology, there's just nothing. You sit there and pretend that consciousness is a state that takes place in anything else but central nervous systems. That's the only place we have any evidence.
No, see, I believe that there is a type of consciousness associated with the central nervous system where millions of neurons can actually be conscious as a single group, you know. And this kind of thing that is specifically the features of a central nervous system, only creatures with central nervous systems have them. But that isn't the whole story, Gary. There is your mood is affected by the chemicals released in your body. And that's not something super special that only humans get to live through. That's just a general thing of biology. All living creatures are susceptible to this, to being subject to the state of the system, the chemical state of the system, and they release chemicals and chemical signals. And this is just simply a fact in all biology that you seem to be ignoring and being like insulted. Well, I'm sorry, but the chemistry of the simplest life form is way more complicated than the chain reaction that's, some salts just go through on their own that aren't living or part of a living system. So, there's a very big difference. And if you're going to make the difference on what they're so slow but they're so tiny, then I think that you just must have your head up your ass, because obviously those are not the things that make a phenomenon interesting or fundamental. This kind of a chain reaction where information about what it takes to keep the chain reaction going is gathered, and then those resources are gathered, that's different. That's different than soap bubbles. But you can't see it, I understand that, but some people just can't see this sort of thing. How taking information in and using it to acquire what you need to survive, information about your survival, and using it to survive further, how taking information in and extending the life of a chain reaction is different from just a chain reaction happening, just boom, and then it's over, runs out. It's slightly different. Some of us can tell that difference, and some can't.
Of it existing in, and we certainly have profound evidence that it doesn't exist in that thing unless it's perfectly functioning. If you break just a little piece of my brain, I am no longer conscious, even
well, that's okay.
though every cell is still alive, the electricity.
The littlest bit, that's not true at all. You could take all kinds of brain damage before you necessarily lose consciousness. There's certain things you could remove, certain nerves, but you could also remove parts of your biology, like your oxygen supply, that'll lose consciousness. But that's just that thing. That doesn't mean that its parts, we break down into living parts. When you die, your skin cells are not dead yet. They're doomed to a terrible fate of starving to death. They'll look for sugars and they won't find them, etc. Look for water, no water. They're not dead yet. Nobody says they're dead yet. They take a while to die. And while they do, they are still processing the things that it takes to survive. They are perceiving elements that affect their survival, using that perception to further their own survival. It's confusing, I know. You can't, it's, what? My single cell can be called alive even if I'm dead? No. As soon as I am dead, everything is dead. And if, whatever, you're just playing simple mind and go, well, it's inconceivable. Yeah, it's inconceivable for you, fine. I accept that.
Is still flying, but no, there's no consciousness there anymore. You just can't keep playing this game with consciousness. It's a word that has a definition, and you're completely fucking...
It doesn't matter. Look, you lose consciousness, but I'm still conscious. Your brain loses consciousness. It doesn't mean that your liver isn't still aware of its hydrogen level or whatever the cells in a liver give a damn about. Whatever they're doing, however they're spending their time, however they perpetrate their own survival as individual cells. You want to get all confused. I mean, the body's brain dead, the person is brain dead, their body's still alive, it's still processing. I'm talking about that as analogous to perception and being conscious of it. And you're like, no, it's an insult to even call it that. Why? Why can't we say plants are conscious of the sun, but in a very different sense than you are conscious of the sun? Why? You just no, they're not conscious at all. I don't get it. I don't understand what you hope to achieve. I don't even think you know what you hope to achieve. I think the reactions to this is pure cognitive science. It strikes down at an idealized cognitive model that people have of their own cognitive place in material reality. It offends that, and then they react to it. And then you get arguments like this that, are not followed through. I mean, an argument where I'm not differentiating. No, I'm differentiating a lot. I'm saying, here's what it's like to be this. It's different to be this. And really, I only know what it's like to be me, but I can imagine in the same way that I can imagine what it's like to be another human being. Through my own experience and witnessing of my similarities from an external, like a picture of myself and a picture of another person. Between my experiences and those similarities, I can extrapolate and say, yeah, other people are telling me they have a subjective experience. They probably do. An animal, dog, looks like it's having a subjective experience. Guess what? I found out all life is very much related to me and looks like me underneath, down the bottom. Biochemistry. One field.
The definition is irresponsible. All right, well, I'll play.
So what could be the irresponsible part of this? I don't understand what could be the irresponsible part of this at all. To talk about the fact that a plant wants the sunlight, it's like that's what you're thinking about when you put it by the window. It's irresponsible to think the plant wants sunlight. It'll take care of itself if you just give it some sunlight, put it anywhere near, it'll go find some. You won't have to sprinkle it with sunlight, but put it where it can find the sunlight. That's dangerous! See, just having an emotional reaction to some inexplicable cognitive model that you are clinging to. It's this one where humans have to be in the center of the universe.
You keep playing this game with consciousness. It's a word that has a definition, and you're completely fucking the definition, and it's irresponsible. All right.
Oh, it has a great definition, right? Yeah, it has a great definition. Well, you don't own that definition. Thou art that probably owns more of the common definition of that than you. Is it great? Well, I'm using the definition that says I am conscious that I am holding a lighter in front of the camera. I know it is there. I can move it, and I have a conception of it. Okay. And that conception, to me, only has to be behavioral. It doesn't have to be self-conscious. By calling it a conception, I additionally have a conception of the conception. You don't have to have a conception of the conception or anything like that. You don't even have to know it's a lighter. A fly that's flying along is conscious of this object. It's a thing. It lands on it. It's a perch. It's not conscious that it's a lighter because that's in our mind, but it's a physical thing and it can interact with it, and I call that consciousness. And you can look it up in a dictionary because that's what it means to be conscious of something. All I am doing is saying that other creatures also have that. You and I agree on mammals. I'm curious about birds and lizards and insects, and exactly where you get off the train and say, oh, that is not a being that perceives and strives. It is a clock, a very advanced clock. We haven't got around to building one of them ourselves.
Well, I'll play a couple more minutes and be back. Alright, a little further along, not much though. Look, he's basically arguing that amoebas are somehow smelling their environment.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I think that's a perfectly good analogy. Smell is a very ancient sense that we know even in higher animals, and I think it's fair to say that that's the best we're going to do for thinking about, well, how does an amoeba sense its world? I mean, it smells it. Right? But what is not like smell in how it senses its world? Chemicals come up to receptors on it. Some of them it recognizes, associates those with things it wants or wants to avoid.
Because, a piece of chemistry will hit their surface, there'll be a physical reaction to it. I mean, this is just nonsense. It's like that's like arguing that the flagellum in my throat, they're somehow conscious. They're little conscious organisms living inside of me.
See, this is what I find ridiculous. That's what you're saying. It's just reacting like a rock. A rock gets a chemical on it and it reacts to it by absorbing it or whatever, depending on the stone that it's made of. It's the same thing. Piero, you are insane to think there's any difference between the way a rock absorbs a chemical and a single-celled life form. Well, yeah, I guess, except for that, we get colds and stuff. There's a little bit difference, because it processes that fucking information. What makes it smell? See, there's plenty of chemicals that land on it and it doesn't notice, just like a rock. It's like, whatever. The smell part is that some of those chemicals are recognized. Sugar. Sugar on this side. Wiggle on the other side then. More sugar. It is processing that reaction to generate behavior in other parts of it that help its survival. If I say it really slow, will you get it? That it's not like a rock. Just react. It's not like soap bubbles, because the soap bubbles don't go out there while they're reacting, preserve some of the energy of that reaction so that they can perpetuate the process. They just spend it.
Filtering, the mucus in my throat. It is just idiotic. They're just mechanical parts. There's a whole big pile. The evolution of life doesn't...
Gary, we're just mechanical parts. I know you believe that. You've argued, called me an idiot, banned me for that too. We're just parts. They're just parts. We're just parts. Where's the difference you're talking about? They're just parts. We're just parts. They're just chemical react. We're just chemical react. What's the difference? They're just a machine and we're just a machine. So we're totally different.
Really, the game of life doesn't start until 600 million years ago, really. Okay, before then, before you had a spinal cord and nerves, you didn't have goddamn feeling life. You had reproducing biological machines, and that's all they were.
I know for a fact I've heard you say that's all we are. Could you be consistent?
If we saw life in that state on another planet, all right, we wouldn't be all like hysterical about their welfare or any of this other kind of crap. We'd see them for what they are, machines. If we...
Well, you know what? I don't care if you're offended by it, but the fact is, a lot of people have seen mammals as machines, and even other human beings. So you can just go, there's a machine. Bullshit. Build one, motherfucker. It's nothing like a clock. Okay, nothing like a clock. I know you guys. Oh, we figured out how life works. It's just like a clock, but I'll build one tomorrow. Yeah, it's not the same. A clock does not process information and spend the energy on survival. Okay, it's not information. A camera records. No, it just is reacting like the rock. It's not information until somebody is using that in this organic cycle. Yeah, consciousness and information and life are related. Now, granted, it might bend your mind to think, well, how could you have a consciousness if you only had chemical brain without neurons, without neurological chemistry? It's pretty bizarre. I'm fine with people saying, well, I would call that something different. Fine, call it plant consciousness or mono. Oh no, not consciousness at all. No, you have to call it consciousness because the system reacts as if it's conscious of the thing. It's the same way I know that you're conscious, because you react as if conscious of something. You act like you know it's there.
If we made them out of metal, then maybe you could visualize it better, but it's the same thing. They're machines. They're chemical machines. They're not conscious beings. They're robots. They're biological robots, and it's controlled by...
We're biological robots, according to you, Gary. We're biological robots, according to you. Tight circles, huh? And you're going to ban me. because I swirl you in a tight circle, but it's not my fault. You don't need to spin around. You can just stand in the center of that little circle instead of fucking trying to swirl around it so fast that centrifugal force will fling you away or something. You say we're just robots, so what the fuck is the point of this line of arguing?
DNA molecule. So I want to get to this, because he was talking about smell. Look, let's talk about what sense is likely to be the cause of sensation. And I would argue that the sense that has the most likelihood that creates this phenomenon of feeling and thinking is vision.
Oh my God. Well, what this is, everybody, boys and girls, is this is a very strong bias in modern humans to be visually oriented. We live in this visual space. We fill up our conception of three-dimensional space for other senses with using metaphors from vision. It seems to be this all-encompassing sense because all the other senses fit in. Like something smelling, it's somewhere out there in that visual space if you could find it. So we use the word see. A blind person. Gary, let me just say, a blind person. Blind from birth. Need I say anything more? Isn't it fucking obvious that you're just struggling against the death of a religion, of a cognitive model that somehow puts you in some place you're used to? You know better already that you're not really there. Because you already discovered it's not true about the animals, all of this machine bullshit. Okay? Plus, you believe humans are machines, so that's more legit, that we're all machines or we're all not machines. The discriminating factor is not going to be if we're a machine or not. It's going to be what kind of machine each one of us is.
Because vision is the most... even when he mentions smell, I mean, we don't smell the molecules. The molecules trigger nerve endings, which in turn are interpreted in our brain as a smell.
And that's what happens in amoeba, right? It doesn't transform the molecule into the major. It doesn't get it in there and then it's bumping around and its reaction is the smell. It gets it, it interprets it as a signal. The chemical doesn't come into the cell necessarily. It can, of course, depending. But it triggers this reaction, and that reaction is the smell. Whatever happens to the molecule after that. It's the same in that biology, if you think it through mechanistically. What you're forgetting is that, yes, they are machines, but so are we. And they're not clocks, though. They're not simple machines. There's no kind of machine we understand. The word machine is a gross approximation of something we don't understand, of this amazing kind of machine that has subjective survival. The weirdest thing for me is if you create a program that processes information for its own survival. That's a hard question. But when you come down to actual things that are all living, that are related to us, that are where we came from, I know for a fact that I'm not going to buy some sort of thing of, well, when a plant reacts to something in its environment, that's nothing like when you react, because we're totally different things except for, half our DNA. No, I'm not going to buy that, ever. It doesn't make sense. It's not how you do science. You capture things and go, whoa, we got consciousness, they react, but we know they don't think like we do, so what is the commonality? How do they think? And I know, don't ask that question is not the answer to that question, and it never will be.
Of a combination of sensations. They hit more than one thing, and they create more than one effect. And our brain figures out, identifies that that's the combination, that's the key. It's a key fitting into a keyhole. So it's not just a simple matter of a knee-jerk anymore. And vision is the perfect example of that, because vision is, yes, there's light and dark. So the first organisms might be just reacting light, dark, but there would be a point in doing that. There'd be a point in
I guess I misunderstood. I watched this video before, but I guess I misunderstood, because you're saying you think vision would be the first sense to evolve that What? I don't, I don't think you got that one right.
A mechanism inside that would say, go to.
So just tell me, who does have, who can I say they're conscious of what they're interacting with? Which kind of animals? Okay, you give me mammals, I guess. What about birds, lizards, and insects? Let's just go down there. Just birds and insects.
Towards the light or away from the dark. And there would especially be, you can see incredible advantage if an organism could all of a sudden start detecting the movement of a predator or movement in their environment that wasn't the same kind of movement that they were used to. If it was an inconsistent movement, then they could freeze and, play dead and not move so they wouldn't be food. And there would be a huge evolutionary advantage in creating an organism that would have those kind of reactions. And those reactions can only take place because, with vision, if there's a witness. This vision, again, is another disconnected sense.
Gary, single-celled life forms need to eat and get water. They need sugars and waters and all methanes, whatever. They all have different kinds of things, but they all need something. That's what distinguishes them as life. They have some sort of a food that they can feed on. They need to sense that food. There is an evolutionary advantage to sense that food. It's an evolutionary requirement. You can't be living in the first place if you can't sense and consume some sort of resource.
The photons hit our retina, and our brain makes the image. Okay, and there has to be something witnessing the image, in a sense, that's reading the image, that's being viewed and reacting to it. And so that might be the place where the original sensation found real life.
Well, see, I've studied a lot of network theory. And to me, it doesn't matter. You could make, in principle, it doesn't matter what the infrastructure is made of. You know what I mean? Like, you could make a computer out of sugar or plastic or, any of these things if they would pull off the physics. So in the case of the silicon chips, it has to be silicon because we don't really have, anything else we want to use for that. Vacuum tubes melt the sugar. That'd be a problem. So with a network, it's a little more clear what I'm talking about. You can have a network with these high-speed lines, or years ago we had a network with just regular old local and long-distance phone lines. The computers would call each other and transfer at night, transfer stuff. And you can have a network where you carry pieces of paper around a room. And in fact, you can have just as complex behavior with the paper going around the room as you have on the internet. The problem is, it would execute a lot slower. It would take a lot longer. So applying this to biology, I see, wow, they have all the same ways of communicating in analogy. That is, you can give a signal to a biological system with neurons. It goes out to the body rather quickly. Okay. Or you can release a message in a biological system with some sort of chemical, like a hormone. That actually goes pretty quickly too, but a lot slower than the nerve ending. Now, I think I've noticed something that you should notice, which is that in human beings, when you have one of these flash, a chill, when your hairs go up, or any of these things where it's this like a neural, you're using that immediate, let's get the whole body informed with this high-speed neural network, that triggers glands to release hormones, because in the end the cells talk hormones. They don't know shit about nerves. You communicate with your cells in this same fashion. If the cells were not able to communicate, able to understand and know, what a sugar was and stuff, how to react, they couldn't be given these kinds of instructions. So a big problem is the term understand, because I'm talking about active, action understanding. I know how to use the thing, how to interact with it in a way that aids my survival. Not self-conscious knowledge of, I know how to put this thing in an encyclopedia with the picture next to it. They understand that, hey, this hormone means, oh, I'm supposed to worry. I am worried. Okay, produce more of this other thing I produce when I'm worried. They know that kind of stuff, in that they're processing the information. There's a sense in which, no, they're just reacting. Yeah, well, that's the same sense in which humans are just reacting. And we don't really know, why did we do that? I don't know. Remember, we don't know all the 100% we're trying to say they don't know that makes them so much lesser. No, they just have a smaller amount of information, much, much smaller. But it is still information. And I can see the similarity because in a network theory, if you have a way to get a message from A to B, a way to broadcast messages, then you basically have what you need for a network. Okay. And the messages that are broadcast in plants, the chemical messages, are incredibly complicated. Nothing like this soap bubble bullshit you want to talk about, and everybody wants to talk about their solar-powered flashlight or whatever. Much, much, much more sophisticated, interesting, and complex. Okay. I will be back. More.
Because then you have something reading it. Once you have something reading it, you have neurology. You have to have a brain to do that. Reading requires you to have a brain.
Well, why? That's my point. Why? So, like in computers, we have this concept of a Turing machine. Please, cognitive models, do not engage. This has nothing to do with the Turing test. Turing machine, the computer you're working on right now is a Turing machine, and there's a proof that any Turing machine can run the same kind of programs as another Turing machine. So, if you sit a bunch of 9-year-olds in a room and give them instructions so that, hey, when I give you a number, you do the following thing, so they act like a Turing machine, then you could execute Microsoft Word. Absolutely. You have a little kid running over to the thing that's working as the computer monitor, changing colors. It's very slow. You have to wait a long time for the screen to refresh. But it's been proven that you could execute it. So I take your non-proof that you need neurology in order to concentrate or coalesce or somehow, have subjective experience that should be called consciousness of something. I reject that needs neurology. You would have to prove that. There's no reason to assume that. This is one of those stupid ancient assumptions some, Mediterranean guy 5,000 years might say and write down and then make a law and then you believe it. I don't know why.
I didn't get very far. Yeah, I mean, he's just so irresponsible in this conversation. He's basically telling people what fucking plants are doing, and yet he's arguing that we can't be fairly confident about what's happening in other humans.
No, I'm saying that the way we get confident in what's happening in other humans is a certain set of analytic tools. And if you analyze microbiotic life, you come to the same conclusion. So, I'm saying that the difficulties with telling about consciousness in another human are the same as the difficulties of telling consciousness in some other non-human entity. And they yield to the same sort of analysis. And you find that both seem to be conscious of things, but different things. The differentiation comes in what they're conscious of. That's the differentiation. Okay, to be serious, the differentiation comes in what they're conscious of. It also comes in the speed and mechanics of how they can execute or act on this consciousness, how the whole system works, fine. But in terms of, are they conscious of something, that's defined for creatures other than myself behaviorally. And I see the behavior of being conscious of a thing that they then seek or avoid. And that is sufficient for the word consciousness. And I'm not redefining it. That's what consciousness means. It's just that we have assumed, that it only counts to humans. And then we've expanded, well, I guess it counts for the pets. Then, okay, well, maybe for things with nerves. But not bugs. Oh, well, maybe bugs. I don't know. Bugs? You tell me.
Like if I say, I basically understand that I have consciousness, they have consciousness, it's probably pretty similar. When they're grieving over their dead mother, it's probably the same kind of little things flying through their head or some kind of crap. It's not all that dissimilar. He's saying we basically can't assume that, but he can make all these fucking goddamn declarations about what fucking amoeba are.
Hey, dumbass. Fucker, motherfucking speaker fucker. Look. That's not what I've said. The fact of the matter is you can't have someone else's subjective experience. When you extrapolate to them and a subjective experience like your own, you're doing that because of the similarities, like you just talked about. Well, if you look at biology closely, you can see similarities between these other biologies and ourselves. The ironic thing is that everybody in this conversation has looked that closely and is rejecting it because they're just, no, 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 totally different, forget the no, 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 no. More or less.
Are feeling, what plants are doing, and what all these other fucking goddamn machines that don't even have fucking brains are doing. I mean, this is just so outrageous. He can speculate about that. He's basically saying, but none of us can be even the least bit confident that humans are generally human. And that cows are generally cows, and that wolves are generally wolves, and that we can extrapolate from mammal to mammal.
No, I say we can extrapolate from mammal to mammal, and that extrapolation goes further and further. It's obvious what I was saying. You are fucking so desperate. It's obvious, and you understood it the other night. I'm extrapolating further and further from us to mammals to et cetera to et cetera. I'm not saying we can't extrapolate. I'm saying it goes further. The opposite of what you're saying, I'm saying. It goes further, the extrapolation. Duh. You think I'm saying that other humans don't have subjectivity on a margin? Only plants do. Me and other plants. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, I am obviously have been arguing it extrapolates further than just mammals. Obviously, as you know, desperate motherfucker.
He's extrapolating from human to goddamn plant. And he's telling people they really don't have a right to even extrapolate from mammal to mammal.
Quote me, get the quote me up. No, I didn't say that. I said that since we do the one, there's a certain way to say that it's not justified, but we managed to justify it, and that justifies the rest. It's quite obvious what I'm saying, and you're obviously not getting it on purpose and blocking me, which is the funny part.
I mean, fuck you. This is just bullshit, Pyro. Oh, yeah, I didn't get very far again. So now he's saying now. He even brought up the example of the comatose person.
Yeah.
And now his argument is okay, yes, their brain is no longer conscious. Right. But their metabolism is still wanting to process sugar and still wanting to do that and wanting, as if that somehow he hasn't now just changed the subject.
What I do like about you is you do get an amazing amount of the detail. Most people that have like a knee-jerk almost reaction don't absorb so much detail. So it's to your credit, and in a way maybe it means I cannot call it knee-jerk. Because yes, this is what I'm saying, and I'm making this difference, see. There's different parts, you know. If your neuron cell is dead, it's not doing anything. The brain is dead, it's not doing anything. But, you know, you're actually recreating and all the rest. Now, you think it's just all a clock. Fine, I understand this is a big part of the difference, but it shouldn't be, because you think even the living, fully functional human being is just like a clock. So I don't understand why you want to hang the distinction on that. But for other people that believe in some freedom of the will, you know, they could hang this distinction there, except for it's just a belief. It's just there's no reason to think that we have this gift and they don't when we see them behave as if they do. Denial, not just a river in Egypt. It's also what Gary does.
It's completely a category error. Once you've said that,
it's funny you should mention category error, because, you know, I see just a tremendous amount of category error. You and To Be Serious and Conference Report on this subject, as well as other people and many commenters. But not the traditional category error of you didn't get the right category. No, it's the category error where you think there is this one right category. Because what creates a category is a criteria. And you can apply that criteria correctly or not, but you won't know that that category is anything fundamental, because that'll all come down to judging the criteria. And the criteria can always be controversial. What is the criteria for true love? There's a lot of candidates. You can use one, multiple, whatever. Okay. So you guys are making tremendous category errors. I mean, I'm making a category error grouping all DNA life together. No, that is one of the most materially justified things in the world. You discriminating a certain little part of homicidal simians as super special is the part that makes no sense. Expanding it to mammals buys you a little time. Now I want to hear about the birds and the lizards and the insects. And when we finally get to the freaking insects, then we can talk about worms and invertebrates and start breaking this stuff down into the single-celled and life form. And it's going to be a matter of what distinguishes us is what kind of information we deal with and what we do with it.
This is in the brain. A brain has consciousness. You're not saying that the individual cells of the brain are all individually conscious. And if you are, what you basically are doing, you're saying the individual cells have their own consciousness. Well, we're not talking about the individual
Yeah, I think the individual cells have their own consciousness. And neurological consciousness is an aggregate of the consciousness of nerve cells. And the nerve cells know things like impulses. And again, they have some of this sugar and stuff old school, but they're very weird cells in terms of comparing them with single cell. You know, a liver cell or a blood cell, much more similar to just your amoeba when you're talking about it, but not quite, because it's not quite self-sufficient. It's dependent on the system, but especially so your nerve cells. And they react to things like electrical impulse from other cells. They're designed so that part of their environment, like the chemical environment for a normal cell, is actually electrical impulses from another cell. And this makes it a very interesting thing that, yeah, it is conscious, in the sense that it knows and processes that information to provide its role, which does help its survival, especially as part of a system that all has various roles that add together to survival. But the nerve cell is not conscious that you're thinking about an apple. All it knows is, oh, I've been triggered here, and that excites me, and this I'm going to spread the... And you want to say, oh, it's just a wiring. Well, it can't be a wiring. Neural systems don't work by hard wiring. They have to be able to rewire. These nerves are deciding to rewire. They're like, oh, I just got this impulse. I'll take that wire back. I'll put one over here. Just going to have to deal with it eventually. I'm glad I could be the one to tell you.
Cells. We're not talking about the metabolism. We're talking about the phenomena of consciousness. And clearly, it's very easy to turn off this consciousness thing when it's in a brain. So how come it's easier to turn off a brain's consciousness, this very complex billions of cells? That consciousness is...
This is kind of an interesting bit, because it's not easier, because, you know, people have gotten nails shot into their brain and remained conscious and you know, even aware. It depends what it actually touches. You cannot put a nail through a single cell creature and have it remain living. And you're getting caught up again, let me just remind you, on this self-consciousness versus consciousness. You're thinking consciousness has to involve this self-consciousness, like, not only do I know the sun is there, but I know I'm going to my car to walk and do this and all to rearrange. No, you could just be a blob sitting there, you feel the heat, you don't know it's the sun, you don't know it moves, you don't know whether it lasts forever, you know nothing really about it except for you're still conscious of the heat. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So, when that thing no longer is able to be conscious of the sugars because, you know, you put arsenic in it, and now it's just like, and it's not quite totally dead yet, it's still trying to react, but it's lost its consciousness. It's not like losing your consciousness as a neural being. It's not that creature's fault that you're a neurological being, and when you think of consciousness, you have a lot of bias towards the full recipe. It's just got a couple ingredients. We got 1 million ingredients. It's just got, you know, a couple 100,000. But it's similar in kind.
Fickle and hard to sustain, and yet the consciousness of these little microorganisms and plants and single cells, their consciousness is somehow so much more durable. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
Well, good, because I didn't say it. I noticed that a lot in my life. People go, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, good, because that's not actually, it just happened at work the other day. I got an email, I thought it was a little testy, and they were like, are you telling me blah, 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 because that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Luckily, it wasn't what I was telling you. That applies to you as well, Gary.
How can it be anywhere equatable to the same thing? Billions and billions...
Because the flower points at the sun and follows it in order to aid its survival. That's the part that's the same. We know there's parts that could be different, but how could it possibly be the same when we've all evolved from the same life form in the first place? I don't know. It's totally impossible, totally inconceivable. How could we have the same systems in different creatures? They look so different.
And billions of cells create a phenomenon that is just as routine as what's happening inside of an amoeba. I mean, why does our brain, why does it waste all of this energy?
Because we are able to be conscious of all kinds of things, not just sugar and water. There's a lot more complexity and richness in what we are consciousness of. And in that sense, our consciousness is superior. It's more advanced, more powerful than the consciousness of many other creatures. But we shouldn't assume that. And we shouldn't assume it's in general that every creature, that we have better, more aware consciousness than every creature. And we shouldn't assume those things. Yeah, there's distinctions. But the fruit fly, it wants to have sex. It has lust and hunger. You have more than just those things, you know? Well, I mean, I'm sorry, plural you. In general, the human race has more.
Why does it process all of that sugar to feed this stupid brain if this brain isn't doing anything?
See, this is this desperation again. When did I say our brain isn't doing anything? Seriously, that's a fucking moronic thing to even say. Where are you going with that? It doesn't do anything. If plants have some kind of consciousness, that means our brain, it's kind of like gay marriage, right? If gays can get married, then a heterosexual marriage has no purpose. Logic textbooks are not so expensive, but perhaps are overpriced a bit.
If everything our brain is doing, a fucking amoeba can do.
Wow. Yes. Remind me next time I say that.
Except for algebra. It can do all the feeling thing. It can do all the wanting thing. It can do all the desiring thing. It can have ambitions. It can do all of that shit without...
Oddly enough, it does look like biology. Lots of biologies do brute force algebraic computation.
A goddamn brain. And somehow our brain can't do it if I just turn a little switch inside of it. All of a sudden the whole thing shuts down. I mean, what a pile of goddamn shit. Okay, this part he starts talking about this unwillingness to acknowledge that living things are just automatons or something like that, and that somehow it's so hard to write artificial intelligence to duplicate. Now, you can duplicate you know what? Science can make something that'll behave just like a microbe.
Nope, you're wrong. You're wrong. You just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's just like, you know, your light speed mistake. You know, you're wrong. Can't be done. Never been done. If somebody does it, they'll fucking Nobel Prize. Next. All right, let's continue where we left off, wherever that was.
They can make one that's really big. They can make one the size of you, and it can behave just like a stupid microbe. All right, no problem. I can make something that'll behave just like a plant.
You're full of shit. I know you've never tried that, or you had some weird explanation of why you failed.
It'll look just like a plant, bend towards the light like a plant, it'll shrivel and die.
Are you fucking crazy? Are you See, you just don't know. No, no. Bullshit. Do it then. Do it, mister. Well, I could do it. Proof by demonstration. But you have to take my word for it that I could do. No, you couldn't fucking do that.
One that looks to mimic a plant.
You don't appreciate. You obviously don't appreciate the complexity of life. You will just do something to mimic, and it's got this genetic machinery you don't even begin to fucking understand. But you can do it. It's just a big clock. You can't even build a fucking clock. But it's like, I can build this super clock though. In principle, you know, just let me take it for granted. No, I do it. I don't believe you.
I'm gonna be able to pass that Turing test, Pyro. Like I said, I can make fucking goddamn nylon in a beaker. That's right.
Yeah, that's way more simple.
I can make a rope come right out of a beaker. Jesus, this is so stupid.
Yeah, you're stupid. I can make epoxy heat up. Therefore, I can build life. It's a totally logical consequence. Why, I shouldn't even have to prove it or demonstrate it. You must be an idiot if you don't believe in my ability to create life. And everybody could do it. Nobody's into it. You know, we could all just easily. But we just don't feel like it. Yeah, right.
Alright, look, there's really no point in doing this in a way, but I'll finish the video just as I started. It's just 15 minutes of talk out of your ass, complete crap. Alright, he hasn't really thought this through. There's probably a ton of examples to defeat everyone.
There's probably a ton of examples, but I know this because in my gut it feels like if gays can get married, what's the point of marriage? I mean, if animals can have conscious, no, I mean, if plants can be conscious of something, what's the point of being conscious? Probably a lot of counterexamples. I need not even think of them, just as very similarly to the fact that I need not build life from nothing, which anybody could easily do. Yeah, there's probably a ton of counterexamples. No, actually, I have thought this through and believed this for quite a long time, but nice try, though. It probably hasn't thought about it, and there's millions of counterexamples. Yeah, right. Think of one. Think of one.
One of his idiotic points is these weird, bizarre standards he's coming up with now to define what the fuck we're doing. And now it's information processing, and that's the game. And now he's arguing that nothing does that independently, and the cell phone needs just to interact with it. Well, we've sent probes to other fucking planets, okay, that behaved entirely on their own. Independent. They didn't need instruction. I mean, that they were built so that even if everything failed, they would have a pre-programmed...
Well, they're living then. Classify them as a living thing. We don't know any distinctions whatsoever. And the next time you take a walk in nature, just walk inside a factory. It's exactly the same thing. It presents some interesting questions, semi-autonomous robots. But those things are just remote controls, where the controls that you send are programs. It's just remote control devices. They don't try to survive on their own. It's ridiculous.
That would allow them to do what they were supposed to do, or accomplish a task. Alright? They were task-oriented, they were information processors, they weren't fucking conscious, Pyro. They weren't on another planet saying, I'm on...
I don't say they were conscious. They don't process that information. They just store it for human beings who do all of the actual processing. Even if they do number crunching, it's through a program written by humans for humans to consume in a way that humans would understand. They're an extension of humans. Nobody said they were conscious. This is a problem for your side because you're the one that can't distinguish between that and a living creature. The rest of us can.
Another planet, I'm conscious and I'm processing information. And this is just such a pile of crap. Consciousness is not about processing information. Alright, it's about organs inside of a brain that create an illusion. Consciousness is not a thing, it is an illusion created inside.
All I'm saying is that a plant, when it gets low in water, is going to have the same kind of illusion created of thirst to represent. That's what biology, that's where the illusion is coming from the DNA. They've got the DNA.
Side of a brain. It takes a lot of fucking hardware, specific hardware, to create the illusion of consciousness. It's like a dream. You can't just make it. Are you going to argue that amoebas are having dreams?
No, I think a dream is a neurological phenomena. But I don't think that you need neurology to exhibit consciousness, because I've seen... amoebas being conscious of the sugar gradients or hydrology gradients. I've seen that.
Amoebas are having dreams? Come on, this is just such a pile of shit.
See, I never said that. It's just non sequitur. Because I say they have some limited consciousness, are you saying they fill out their taxes and argue over the phone with people? No. I'm saying they think about sugar. It's fucking obvious. You're just so desperate, just go anywhere. Yet this is obviously not. I've not said that, and nothing I say will imply that these clockworks are conscious.
Now he's saying a plant thinks about water and the sunlight, and then it's willing. I mean, just, like I said, there's no point in having vocabulary. There's no point in talking to people who even speak.
You don't think anything wills. So you're a fucking special idiot because you're all indignant that I've insulted will, which you don't even think exists. So how pointless is that?
Fucking English. I might as well just speak to some Chinese guy who doesn't know a word of English, and I don't know a word of Chinese, and we might as well have a conversation.
Well, that's kind of what it's like. That's kind of what it's like when you and I speak science, because you don't know.
This is just as fucking useless. Fuck you. I mean, fuck you for destroying the... Fuck you for that.
You know what? Thank you. Thank you for crediting me with destroying this fucked up, dumbass dictionary where you get to take a word like consciousness, and instead of it being about whether the, agent is aware of something, making it the agent being aware of it and them being humans. Oh, I mean mammals. Oh, wait, I mean neurological creatures except for bugs. And blah, 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 with all your little extra little commas and say except for but and by the way and oh, it's just for humans. I'm sick of you humans always think you're in the center of everything. You're not in the center of the solar system or the universe or consciousness.
Fuck you.
Fuck you too, Gary.
Oh, it's just so insufferable. I'm telling you, again, I can't get more than 30 seconds into this shit, and he says something else stupider than before. And so now he's just saying it's like any kind of information processing. So anytime a piece of chemistry goes from one piece of my body to another piece of my body, they're having an independent conscious experience.
No, I didn't say that. I said it was an evidence when that sort of thing goes on. The fact that the leaf doesn't turn itself to the sun. See, if the leaf is blowing in the wind and the wind actually moves the leaf and the leaf somehow in its own structure has this reaction, just physically, that's different than it having to be processed as information, mapped from sunlight information into how many ions you're going to pump, phosphorus ions or whatever you're going to pump into a tissue. That mapping is evidence of a kind of information processing, which is different from the kind of information processing that goes on in a stone as the sunlight is absorbed, where information is merely destroyed. Okay, that's what I was saying. I did not say that because here we are again. I'm not saying that the clock has information about the time. No, because it's not really information until it's processed by a living creature with goals.
I mean, it is true, Pyro. By your theory, there are literally millions, hundreds of millions, if not billion, cells in my arm. If I cut my arm off and I throw it over there, you're going to tell me it's a fucking sentient living being.
I didn't say it was sentient, but it is living. Those cells are still living. You're just stupid. It's obviously living. And all of you that deny that kind of thing, I'm sorry, however intelligent you are, you're reacting to some emotional drama within you because, yes, sorry, you cut off someone's arm and throw it into the ditch. The skin cells are still living. They starve to death.
Maybe we should give it a couch to lie in and, cool it with some, water and pet it and take care of it because it's having a will experience and it's all hysterical now because the cells are starting to...
See, this is partly what it is. It's like, but we've been trained that all life is precious. Of course, we still believe in war and fighting and killing and we step on bugs and but all life is precious. So what we've done, instead of admit that we don't think all life is precious, we've just pretended some living things aren't really alive. That'll be much better. With your stupid anthropocentric humans uber alles, huh?
Die and things are happening and it doesn't like it and it's having a bad time. I mean, this is just such a crock of shit. The word consciousness has a meaning, and it doesn't mean any time a piece of goddamn dish soap hits some water, there's a conscious experience. I mean, there's just no point in having the word...
Of course not. That is idiotic. Notice you're the one that brought that up as somehow similar to a living creature. Living creatures have focus. They focus on their prey. Just man up. And tell me, okay, so humans have it, and then, is a dog conscious of their toy? Okay, what about a bird? Is it conscious of the food the other bird just took from it? What about a lizard? Is it conscious of its prey? What about a bug? Is it conscious of its, web? What about, just where do you get off of that? Because, you know, you definitely go outside the human species for it. Mr. Obvious has the perfect definition of consciousness. You know, cough it up, man.
Or conscious if you're going to sit there and blow it up, just destroy it, annihilate it, turn it into complete rubbish and crap.
You're full of shit. It's not rubbish and crap. I'm analyzing how living things behave. You want to ignore some and say, well, those are just like a clock. I could make it easily in my backyard or my basement. But again, let me remind you, I simply have not taken the time to do it because it's too easy.
Now he's making this preposterous accusation that somebody is somehow implying that dogs don't feel.
See, you're just, oh my God, you don't know at all what's going on. No, I'm saying since you admit the dogs feel, how do you do that? By watching their behavior, noticing their similarities. Well, I'm sorry, I've studied enough the biology of this to see the similarities with other life forms. You just haven't. It's just a lack of knowledge in your case, you know. Some people do that, as you're about to admit. So I think you could get the point that it's the same exact argument that you're arbitrarily saying was for special for humans. Okay, special for mammals. Just still as a last-ditch attempt to keep humans in the center of something. You know, give some of our neighbors like dogs. You know, okay, you have emotion too, but to keep it still kind of close before it all gets lost.
It's the argument people are making, that's where they're drawing this line of consciousness. Now, there are some people who
Where are you drawing the line of consciousness?
don't think animals deserve to be treated fairly, and they eat them, okay? And you're one of those people. And now you're taking the opposite tact and trying to defend the idea that consciousness, well, a dog loves its puppies. Well, I'm sure not having an anal probe. Fuck you. This is just such crap. The argument is...
So fuck me because you agree with me, and it's obvious, yes.
Is there sentience, okay, in organisms that have no nervous system and no central...
Well, no, just tell me about birds and lizards and bugs, because they have nerves.
Nervous system. That's the argument, Pyro. Don't change the fucking subject. God damn, I mean, this is just so... These are the worst videos you have ever made. This is just such crap.
I think they're great. I think they're showing how callous and old-fashioned someone like yourself is about these ideas. How you react as though your idealized worldview is being attacked. It's exactly like people that think all is lost if somebody else can get married. It's like, my consciousness means nothing if a flower can be conscious of the sunlight. All would be lost. If a fruit fly is conscious of sugar, all is lost. That only seems that way because it's already lost.
Alright, now he's saying plants get thirsty. Yeah, they get thirsty. I mean, even human beings can't do that when they're in a persistent vegetative state. Nope, can't even get thirsty, even though their body is starving.
What do you mean they can't get thirsty? Because they can't tell you they're thirsty? Bullshit.
They're dehydrated. They can't get thirsty anymore. But a plant can do it. No problem. I mean, this, you know, this is just. I shouldn't. There's no.
See, what makes me sick about your view is this: that you don't even get how, even though you've put down the human race, bacteria with brains, you're still in the group of glorifying us. You can't just face it. We're just a bunch of chemicals and reactions too. Yes, some of the things we experience are because of nerves, and animals without nerves don't experience them. But guess what? You're in the group that has said even animals with nerves didn't experience them, and then maybe they relent, and there's always some little special little thing for us to be so special, even though you know full well we're just a bag of juices. But it's still very... you hate me. I'm your enemy now because I won't perpetuate the language of the glorification of mankind. Right. You need to look into your little emotions there about why you really feel these things.
There's nothing to say. There's just no point. Human beings are just too stupid and useless for words.
but very, very especially special, that no other animal should ever even daring to say that they might have some of the similar qualities. Oh no, because they're so stupid but special. Fucking walking bag of contradictions, my friend.
It's disgusting. This is disgusting. I mean, we got.
Yeah, it's disgusting. For me to have an idea that leads to my compassion for all of the living things in the world, and for me to care about the ecology of a forest, and the creatures in it of all kinds, how disgusting. It's very terrible to have a view that would lead to compassion. I'm a vegetarian against factory farming, but treating things like they're living, that's a bit much, isn't it, Piero?
Ignorance in the world you got to fight with. And then people who actually went to school, went to college, took physics classes, and they talk this kind of...
Well, it's because in the physics classes, and you start to see with chemistry, there isn't that much difference between us and other living creatures. We're all using the genetic machinery, and that's really the amazing biochemistry that's like, what? Wow? And it leads to brains and all kinds of other things, and it reuses all of its features. It didn't just save consciousness for us. Is it a fucking crock of shit, you special feeling, elitist human?
Rubbish. Absolute crap. Thirsty plants.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Whoever says, nobody ever thinks of their plant as thirsty or showing signs of distress. No, least of all people that take care of plants.
On the enemies list. This is just such crap. I mean, I waste my time. This is just such a waste of time. Having to argue with this is even a bigger waste of time than arguing with the religious nuts. This is like arguing with 5-year-old fucking, I love my teddy bear, teddy bear, teddy bear.
Then just tell us where the consciousness stops, okay? You give it to your cat and your dog, and where does it stop? Some animal you don't have a pet of? Just amazingly, it'll stop there. Something very human-centric, no doubt. At some point where we find, here's the chemical only we have. That must be it. That's the secret ingredient. There is no secret ingredient. You're just fucking human hormones, chemistry. You're as automatic as any other creature, and vice versa. You have more things in your consciousness. I enjoy that. You don't. You want to get out of it. That's why some of us prefer to be a fruit fly. I mean, a human to a fruit fly. But you, my friend, would probably be fine with sex and sugar. Okay? Not my problem that you got incarnated in the wrong animal.
Teddy bear, teddy bear. I mean, I'm just not going to waste my time trying to explain to people why a teddy bear doesn't feel. I mean, this is...
Well, good. Because that's stupid.